Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praises are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Lord of all the worlds, and may His peace and blessings be upon our Master, the Holy Prophet Muhammad, and his pure, immaculate Ahlul Bayt. Okay, the theme that we want to speak about is spiritual wayfaring, Sayru Suluk. The wayfarer, the traveler, is the I, the immaterial rational spirit. And we spoke about this last night, that the I, the essence of what we are, is the immaterial rational spirit. So the traveler in Sayru Suluk is the I. The means of traveling, we said, is the body and the world in general. Without the body, the I can't spiritually elevate itself. So the traveler is the I, the means of traveling is the body. Now, yesterday we spoke about the I in some detail. Before going on to the next discussion, I just want to complete one issue, and that is to provide some Quranic support that the I is the immaterial rational spirit. Chapter 32, verses 10 to 11. وَقَالُوا أَإِذَا دَلَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ أَإِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. They say, when we have been lost in the dust, shall we be indeed created anew? They were denying their meeting with the Lord. Will we be created anew? And then the verse reads, قُلْ say, يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ الَّذِي وُكِّلَ بِكُمْ ثُمَّ إِلَى رَبِّكُمْ تُرْجَعُونَ. Say, you referring to the essence of you, will be taken away by the angel of death, Malakul Maut, who has been charged with you. Then you will be returned to your Lord. When you die, you're buried. Your body's there, your brain's there, everything's buried there. But you, the essence of what you are, the immaterial rational spirit, is taken by the angel of death, Israel. That will be taken away. That's the essence of what we are. قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ. The angel of death will take you away. Tawafi in Arabic is taking away. If somebody owes me £10 or $10, only when he returns all the $10 do the Arabs use the word tawafi. If someone owes me $10 and he only gives me $5, the Arabs use another expression. It's only when it's returned in its entirety we say tawafi. Here the angel of death will take you in its entirety, that which consists your essence. And we see it's not the body, it's not the brain, it's nothing but the immaterial rational spirit. Also in chapter 39, verse 42, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. Allah takes the souls. It's explicit now. Allah takes the souls at the time of their death. That immaterial rational spirit. Allah takes the souls, and anfusa. And Allah takes the souls of those that have not died in their sleep. He takes the souls of those who haven't died in their sleep. When we sleep and dream, the I has entered another phase of existence. The body's there, sleeping. There's respiration, there's circulation of the heart. But yesterday we said, that's because of the vegetative soul. Circulation, metabolism, all these are vegetative functions. Nothing to do with what we are, essentially. The I, when we sleep, that also leaves. And we dream, and so on and so forth. The verse continues, فَيُمْسِكُ الَّتِي قَضَى عَلَيْهَا الْمَوْتَ وَيُرْسِلُ الْأُخْرَى إِلَى أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Then He, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, holds on to those on whom He has passed the decree of death. There's no return to the world. If you die, the soul is disconnected. Allah takes the soul, but you won't come back into this world. For those who He has passed the decree of death, Allah will hold. And He sends the others, those who went to sleep and were dreaming. Okay? Will they come back to the dunya? And He sends the others back till an appointed term. Then we wake up and we carry on our lives in this world. Most surely these are the signs in this. There are signs in this for those who reflect. Okay, that was the first stage I wanted to discuss. So we've discussed the nature of the traveler in Sayr al-Suluk, the immaterial rational spirit. Now we want to say and discuss how he has to travel. What is the first stage in Sayr al-Suluk? Before I say this, I'll just give an example of a torch. A torch, its main function is to provide light. However, there are some other secondary uses too. It may lead to heat and warmth and other things. You can use it to hit someone, but its primary thing is to provide light. Now we, the immaterial rational spirit, what is the primary function of us rational spirits? It has to be only one, and that's tafakkur, contemplating, deliberating, thinking, pontificating, and so on and so forth. At the end of the day, it's the tafakkur which differentiates us from other beings. So maybe this is the first stage in our Sayr al-Suluk, tafakkur. Chapter 10, verse 100. وَمَا كَانَ لِنَفْسٍ, no soul, أَن تُؤْمِنَ إِلَّا بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ, no soul may have faith except by Allah's permission. A soul, if he wants to acquire Tawheed, Ma'ad, knowledge of Ma'ad, belief in Ma'ad, Nubuwwat, Imamat, and so on and so forth, he can't acquire this faith if it wasn't for Allah's permission. Now, wherever in the Quran they speak of Allah's permission, it's not just mentioning this willy-nilly. There's a systematic cause and effect to acquire and be granted Allah's permission. We have to understand what that is so that Allah's permission will be granted. So no soul may have faith except by Allah's permission. The verse continues and it describes how we can be granted this permission so that then we can acquire faith. وَيَجْعَلُ, Allah designates, or He lays, الرِّجْسَ وَيَجْعَلُ الرِّجْسَ, He lays spiritual barriers, spiritual defilement. He designates barriers for us. For who? عَلَى الَّذِينَ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. If you don't يَعْقِلُونَ, if you don't apply reason, if you don't think, if you don't deliberate, okay, Allah will designate spiritual barriers, and then you won't be able to acquire faith in Tawheed, Ma'ad, and so on and so forth. So this is indirectly suggesting that tafakkur has to be there as a first step. Without this, faith will not follow, maybe. So applying reason is necessary for acquiring faith and believing. Now I just want to quickly read a few traditions from the Ahlul Bayt. Al-fikru yahdi ila rushd. Contemplation leads one to growth, leads one to one's destination. There has to be some contemplation, tafakkur. Al-fikru yufidul hikmah. Contemplation leads one's wisdom to fruition. We all that wisdom to be actualized, we have to think in order for that wisdom to lead to fruition. Ra'sul istibsar al-fikra. The source of having insight is thinking. You see the importance of tafakkur here. La basirata liman la fikra la. You have no basirat. If there's no fikr, you'll have no basira. You won't have any insight into your religion, into your faith. And so on and so forth. One tradition reads, أفضل العبادة إدمان التفكر في الله وفي قدرته. One of the most superior of the ibadat is that of executing tafakkur. In relation to what? With respect to Allah and Allah's power. Fillah, it means with respect to Allah's oneness, affirming His perfections, contemplating on His names and attributes. And I'll give an example of how we can contemplate on His attributes. وَفِي قُدْرَتِهِ, contemplating on His power. That too, contemplating on His might, His creation. Contemplating on creation, appreciating Allah's might there. Contemplating on His actions, His programs of salvation, and so on and so forth. During my medical years, when I was a student, we had an atheist professor, and he said the only reason, though, I am not an atheist, the only reason I'm not an atheist is because of the creation of the ear. He was a professor in anatomy. That one thing may lead him ultimately to go to Jannah, inshallah. Okay? Just, a professor, the ear led him to believe that there has to be a God. Yes. So, this contemplation on Allah's creation is very important and effective. However, there are some forms of contemplation which are prohibited in Islam. You can't exercise tafakkur with respect to these. And that's when you want to try and endeavor to understand the depths, quality, and the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is dangerous, because ultimately the I is a limited being in all fields. We're limited at the end of the day. How can something limited really see that infinite eternal source? It's not possible. So we've been prohibited in going into the details of Allah's quality, the depth of His essence, and so on and so forth. And traditions which support this are the following. إِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّفَكُّرَ فِي اللَّهِ. Beware of contemplating with respect to Allah Himself. وَلَكِنْ إِذَا أَرَدْتُمْ أَن تَنْظُرُوا إِلَى عَظَمَتِهِ فَانْظُرُوا إِلَى عَظِيمِ خَلْقِهِ. If you really want to see His might, then contemplate on the might of His creation. Another tradition reads, مَنْ نَظَرَ فِي اللَّهِ كَيْفَهُ. Whoever contemplates on Allah with respect to His quality, what His quality is, مَنْ نَظَرَ فِي اللَّهِ كَيْفَهُ هَلَكَ. He'll die. He'll be destroyed. That kayfahu, don't go in the realm of kayfahu. You can't. Another tradition, إِيَّاكُمْ وَالتَّفَكُّرَ فِي اللَّهِ فَإِنَّ التَّفَكُّرَ فِي اللَّهِ لَا يَزِيدُ إِلَّا تِيهًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُدْرِكُهُ الْأَبْصَارِ وَلَا يُوسَفُ بِمِقْدَارٍ. Beware of contemplating in relation to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because doing so will increase nothing but tiha, bewilderment, confusion, perplexity. Inna Allah la yudrikul absar. The eyes can't perceive of Allah, be it the physical eyes or the eyes of the intellect. Wala yusaf bimiqdar. And Allah can't be described by any amount. And there are many traditions. I won't go through all of them here. One last tradition which I want to speak about is تفكر ساعة خير من عبادة سنة. Contemplating for an hour is better than a year's worship. Some traditions say it's better than 60 سنة, 60 years worship. Some say 70. We have even one or two traditions saying it's better than 1,000 years of worship. Now what does this mean? With this 60 years of worship, imagine someone at 15 years of age, he does all his duties, ibadat and so on and so forth, until 75 years of age, from 15 to 75. He or she will acquire, let's call it X degree of faith. After 60 years of ibadat, he or she will acquire, let's call it X amount of faith. With 1 hour's contemplation, it is possible, potentially, to achieve that X. Allahu Akbar. Look at the capacity of tafakkur. It has this capacity. So, that's one of the first stage of this Sayr al-Suluk is tafakkur. Now I want to give an example of how we can exercise tafakkur in relation to the attributes of Allah. Okay? And look at the effects it will have. I want to look at the attributes Al-Hakim and Al-Adil, the all-wise, the all-just. If we truly contemplate and believe that Allah is Al-Hakim, all-wise, then, and you always keep on uttering Al-Hakim, Ya Hakim, Ya Hakim during the day, always contemplate reciting it. Inshallah, during the phase of tadakkur, I'll discuss this, how we should recite these names. But if we really contemplate on Al-Hakim, then we'll regard all of creation as perfect. There's a wisdom behind everything in creation. There's a wisdom why, for example, I'm short or tall. There's a wisdom I have this bodily deficiency or I don't. My mother died early or not, and so on and so forth. I'm rich or I'm poor. There's a hikmat behind everything. There has to be, because Allah is all-wise. He's all-just. If you don't believe this, you'll have problems in your aqa'id, and that will reflect in your actions somehow. Now, if we really believe that all creation is perfect, and there's a hikmah behind everything, then we'll never be jealous. This spiritual illness, which is called jealousy, we'll never have it. The more perfect one's tafakkur is in relation to Allah being all-wise, the less one's jealousy will be. The cure for jealousy, this spiritual illness, is ma'rifah, is tafakkur in relation to these attributes. That's one example. Also, if Allah is Al-Adil, truly just, we will get that which we are due, that which we deserve. So we become eager for reward because we know Allah will give what is expected. We know that Allah will give what is our due. So we become eager. We increase our obedience. We invite our nafs towards virtue, and this will increase our taqwa. Or, since we know Allah is Adil, we fear punishment. We increase our ibadat, refrain from the muharramat, distance ourselves from sinning. This will enhance our taqwa. Okay, just pontificating on Al-Adil can enhance this taqwa, the whole concept of taqwa. So pontificating and contemplating on these attributes have a lot of effects. And it's very encouraging for one to go through the attributes one by one. There are 99 of them in the Quran, there are 1,000 of them in many of the adiyah that we have. Going through them one by one in one's free time, or discussing it with a partner, and look at the different effects this can have. Okay, however, the important thing is this: Tafakkur is necessary, okay? Applying reason is necessary, but don't lose the plot. It's not sufficient. You can acknowledge Allah by means of your intellect. You can confirm Him, but you won't be able to see Him by means of the intellect. There's a difference between these two. بالعقول يعتقد تصديق بالله. True. With the aql, you can acknowledge Allah. There's no problem there. But we have so many people whose ilm and knowledge with respect to Allah is, their a'lam maybe. Their knowledge with respect to ma'ad is perfect. They can tell you they can answer any question in relation to ma'ad. Their knowledge of imamat is perfect. Their tafakkur and knowledge in relation to prophethood, perfect. However, they can be the worst of sinners. You have to be careful here. Don't lose the plot. Tafakkur is necessary, but it's not sufficient. Tafakkur, ilm alone won't get you to paradise. It can't. There has to be something else. You have to try to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the fitrah. And we discussed this yesterday. The eye has to be purified, has to be refined for one to be able to see Allah. If you see Allah, you can't sin. It's not possible. But you may have the best knowledge but be a sinner. But once you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you can't sin there. It's impossible then. Some people's knowledge may be very weak, but they see Allah. Okay? It's possible. Because with the fitrah, that refinement of the fitrah, in order for you to see Allah, is via actions, the sharia. Some people may act and see Allah, but their ilm is weak. Some people, their ilm is very strong, but they never see Allah, but the knowledge is very high. The best combination naturally would be for one's knowledge to be high and for one's actions to be high in order to see Allah. That's the best. So I've spoken about tafakkur as the first stage, but don't forget that the ultimate objective in Sayyidul Suluk is that seeing Allah, and tafakkur has to be used merely as a means. Sometimes tafakkur can act as a veil of ignorance. As Imam Khomeini would always say, sometimes knowledge, going to the Hawza in Qom, Najaf, can be a veil for you. Reciting the Quran can be a veil sometimes. Yes, one has to be very careful. Okay. Now, one, by means of creation and the manifestations, one can acknowledge Allah as the creator and acknowledge Allah. But one can't see Allah through creation and through the manifestations. If you pay attention, it's a very subtle point here. Maybe you can acknowledge Him via tafakkur through creation and His manifestations of Allah. Okay? But you can't see Allah by means of the manifestations. It's very important. Now, to support this statement, I'm going to read a part of a dua Arafah, and also I'm going to relate one of the stories of the Quran which support what I'm saying here. The dua reads as such: Ilahi taraddudi fil athar yujibu bu'd al-mazar. Yes. My focus, O Lord, my focus and being attentive with respect to your manifestations, your creation, leads to me being distanced from seeing you. Bu'd al-mazar. Yes. فَأَجْمِئْنِي عَلَيْكَ بِخِدْمَةٍ تُوصِلُنِي إِلَيْكَ. Allow my thoughts to be directed, to be pivoted around you by means of that servitude that leads me to you. كيف يستدل عليك بما هو في وجوده مفتقر إليك. How can one be led towards you, see you, by means of that which is dependent on you existence-wise? How can the sun, the moon, lead me to see Allah when the sun itself, existence-wise, depends on Allah? It's not possible. The sun and the moon may lead you to acknowledge Allah, but won't lead you to see Him. أَيَكُونُ لِغَيْرِكَ مِنَ الظُّهُورِ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ حَتَّى يَكُونَ هُوَ الْمُظْهِرُ لَكَ. Do things other than you possess any degree of manifestation that you don't, for it to be able to manifest you? This is Dua Arafah. متى غبت حتى تحتاج إلى دليل يدل عليك. When were you ever absent? When were you ever absent so that you would need something to guide us to you? No. We don't need any of the manifestations to see Him. Actions only lead us to see Him. And finally, let's go through this story of the Quran. You know, the Quran, its meaning, the essential meaning of the Quran, the al-Kitab, the essence of the book, is something very, very abstract, very complex. Its meaning, yes, we'll never attain to it. This complex and abstract meaning had to descend many realms of existences for it to turn into this Quran, to turn in the Arabic words and the Arabic language. Otherwise, its essence is something else. You can't limit it with words and so on and so forth. Now, all the stories of the Quran, all of them, according to the scholars, are all related to one thing: how to eliminate the nafs, the ego. Because the ego can prevent you from seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This, me, I am this, I am that, this I. All the stories are related to how this I has to be eliminated in order for you to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of them, all the stories of the Quran, or most of them. Now let's look at this story. It's of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, and let's see how this relates to the fact that there's a difference between acknowledging Allah and seeing Allah. Chapter 2, verse 260. وَإِذْ قَالَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ رَبِّي أَرِنِي كَيْفَ تُحْيِي الْمَوْتَى. This is Prophet Ibrahim. He's a prophet. He's acknowledged Allah perfectly. Okay? He's asking Allah, show yourself to me. Prophet Ibrahim is asking Allah, show yourself. Naturally, he being a prophet, he knows that he doesn't want to see Allah with the eyes. There's something more deep here. Show me how. First it says Arini, and then it says how you make the dead alive again. Show me your attribute of Muhyi. And attributes are the same as Allah's essence. Show your essence to me. Show this attribute to me. Qala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Awalam tu'min? Don't you have faith in me? Don't you have faith? Haven't you acknowledged me? This is the wording, this is all for our benefit. It's referring to how we have to make the most of this. Awalam tu'min? Haven't you acknowledged me? He was a prophet at the time. Qal, Bala, of course, yes. You won't expect anything different. Of course, he's acknowledged Allah. Bala, yes. وَلَكِنْ لِيَطْمَئِنَّ قَلْبِي. I want that certainty of the heart. And as we said yesterday, the heart always means the fitrah. That certainty. I want to see you. Yes, sorry, I have to go. Yes. Now, in relation to us, in order to attain to Allah and unite with Him, what do we have to do? For that certainty of our qalb, our fitrah, what must we do? So Hazrat Ibrahim says, it's only for the certainty of the fitrah. I want to see this attribute. I want to see you. So Allah provides a protocol. The protocol is essentially for us to follow. But this is the protocol. Now before I read the verse, I'll just say what happened. So Allah says, take 4 birds, slaughter them, cut their necks, keep the necks of the bird, the heads of the birds, keep them for yourself. With the 4 bodies, destroy them and blend them together. Mix them together. And then put a portion on each of the 10 mountain peaks which were there at the time. So put a portion of the carcass on each peak, mountain peak, and then call unto them, and they will come to you. So once Hazrat Ibrahim did that, he then called unto the dead birds, and he had the 4 heads with him, and then they all came towards the heads, the birds. And actually Hazrat Ibrahim had the heads. He wanted to test the situation. He would sometimes move the heads like this and move them up and down, but the bodies would each be connected to their respective head. Now, what does this mean now? This was the external meaning of the verse, and we accept this external meaning. This is a reality, this happened. But what are the esoteric meanings of this verse? What is it trying to tell us? What is this protocol that if abided by, we can see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? قال فخذ أربعة من الطير. Take 4 birds. فصرهن إليك. فصرهن إليك. فصرهن. What was فصرهن? Yes. Oh yes. Make them tame towards you. ثم اجعل على كل جبل منهن جزءا ثم ادعوهن يأتينك سعيا. Then put them on the mountain peaks, a bit on each, then call unto them, they'll come to you in speed. The 4 birds, one was a cock or rooster, which is known to have a high sexual appetite. One was the peacock, which is known to be very arrogant. The ego of the peacock is very high. One was the duck, which eats, dead remains of animals, which is reflective of one's attention towards materialism. And one was the crow or raven, which overeats. Hazrat Ibrahim a.s. was told to kill the 4 birds, meaning esoterically, maybe to eliminate these attributes of vice. These vicious attributes have to be eliminated within one. One's sexual appetite has to be controlled. One's eating has to be controlled. One's ego has to be eliminated. No traces of arrogance must remain within one if one wants to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One's over-reliance on the material world has to be eliminated. One has to use and occupy oneself in the worldly life in control. Allah must never exit the equation. Once these are eliminated and destroyed, Hazrat Ibrahim was asked to call upon the birds. The bird became alive. Hazrat Ibrahim saw the attribute, saw Allah. You destroy those 4 vicious attributes, you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He saw Allah, the attribute Al-Muhyi. And when the birds were coming, he was moving his hands, the heads of the birds, just to test what exactly is happening here, up and down. What does that mean? It means now Hazrat Ibrahim is in total control. He is in control of the nafs now. not the nafs, not those vicious attributes being in control. So in relation to us, once these 4 attributes are eliminated, we will control the nafs. It's under our power now. We won't be captivated by it. We won't be enslaved by the nafs anymore. Okay, so this is very important. At the end of the day, it's actions which lead us to refine and purify the fitra, and this will inshallah lead us to see him. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وأجل فرجه.